We're going to Washington, D.C. right now, where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is beginning to question bank executives.
I'm tough. It's not personal, okay? I was really going back and reviewing these last 10 years, and I have concerns about how much things have really changed. I did an assessment, and year by year, let's go back to 2013. 2013, Chase had to pay out $720 million in fines to the Fed, SEC, and UK Financial Conduct Authority for failing to oversee its trading practices, including what is known as the London Whale. 2014, Bank of America agreed to a $16.5 billion settlement to the DOJ and others for misconduct related to mortgage-backed securities, and a $20 million penalty with another $727 million in consumer relief. 2015, Bank of New York Mellon, $714 million to settle claims that it defrauded customers when it promised to exchange at best rates for customers, but instead used the worst rates and pocketed the difference. 2016, Wells Fargo entered into consent orders for fraudulently opening millions of accounts in customers' names without their consent or knowledge. 2017, State Street, 7 months after installing the Fearless Girl statue, paid $5 million in back pay and interest after a Department of Labor audit found that State Street was systematically paying female employees less than their male counterparts and black executives less than similarly situated white executives. My colleague from Illinois highlighted some troubling connections between Morgan Stanley and Puerto Rico's illegal debt load. 2018, Goldman Sachs began facing lawsuits from DOJ, the Fed, foreign governments in relation to funding bribes and kickbacks to foreign officials relating to raising funds for Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund. Timothy Leissner, the Goldman Southeast Asia executive, pled guilty to various charges and forfeited $43 million. And just last month, March of 2019, Citibank fined for $25 million for violating the Fair Housing Act, for failing to offer benefits to all eligible customers, namely on the basis of race, national origin, and sex. And so I'm concerned here about the potentiality of fines related to misconduct just being incorporated as the cost of doing business. Mr. Corbett, is a cost-benefit analysis that weighs the cost of government fines versus the potential financial upside of potentially breaking the law, does that factor into controversial decision-making around misconduct at your bank?
Absolutely not.
Okay, in my district, I represent Rikers Island. I represent kids that go to jail for jumping a turnstile because they can't afford a Metro card. Do you think that more folks should have gone to jail for their role in a financial crisis that led to 7.8 million foreclosures in the 10 years between 2007 and 2016, Mr. Dimon?
I don't think people should go to jail for jumping a subway. I think we put too many people into jail, and I think if people broke the law, they should go to jail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think that the failure to hold more people accountable for the 2008 crisis as a failure of our legal system?
Look, you have to talk to a lot of legal experts about why more people didn't, whether they deserve to, whether they broke the law, what's intent, what's not intent. But you have to talk to legal experts about that.
On that note, Mr. Dimon, I do want to commend you for your decision and Chase's decision to pull out of financing for private prisons. I think that has led to some changes, particularly with Wells Fargo as well, in making sure that we begin to divest from some of the troubling things that we're seeing, particularly when it comes to the caging of children at our border. I have one last question with respect to that's more future-looking. Recently, the Federal Reserve Board decided not to activate the countercyclical capital buffer this year, but banks are very profitable, making a record $237 billion in profits last year. Mr. Corbett, is this not the best time for banks? Is this not the best time for the Fed to build more capital so that they can be in a better position to weather a future downturn?
As I stated earlier, that today, by the Fed's own measurement, they're measuring 23 or 24 different types of capital. What we've said is we're welcome to a holistic approach, of which the countercyclical buffer is one. but rather than pick individual, let's look holistically at what the right solution is.
The gentleman
much.
from New York, Mr. Zeldin, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, Ranking Member McHenry, all of our witnesses who are here. I represent a district on the east end of Long Island, the 1st Congressional District of New York. There's a lot of strong representation on both sides of the aisle from our home state of New York, and I see that a majority of the witnesses who are here from companies.
You've been
that are headquartered
looking
in our
at
home
Alexandria
state.
Ocasio-Cortez, questioning bank executives at the House Financial Services Committee. I'm here with Andy Sturwer and Miles Udlin, of course. And I think what strikes me from her questioning there, you know, she went through a laundry list of settlements that the banks have gone through the last 10 years, is that we're still talking about the financial crisis. We're still talking about accountability for something that happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the focal point of the hearings. In other words, is the financial system safer than it was 10 years ago, and how have things changed? So, you know, I guess by definition, you would be going back and revisiting, and there have been a lot of fines. There have been a lot of profits made. There has been a lot of CEO paid in that time period. And Maxine Waters sort of said those are the things we're going to be looking at. And so it doesn't surprise me that AOC went there. And I think it's a legitimate line of questioning. You know, I think the 5 minutes that each of these representatives gets sort of limits by definition how much impact they can have. And so she was just getting warmed up, as all of these representatives are. And then it's like, and then Maxine Waters hits her gavel. And by the way, Secretary Mnuchin, it's called a gavel, not a gravel, as you called it yesterday. And then we're on to the next person.
I found it interesting that AOC didn't draw a more direct connection between her rise as a politician in the financial crisis, because I think as a millennial, we're basically the same age, myself and Rep. Ocasio-Cortez. It seems like everything that defines our politics as young people is about the crisis and is still about the crisis. And I think that a reminder for the executives up there today and for the folks who think this hearing is pointless is that if you follow financial markets all the time, it seems like the crisis is fixed and done and, you know, whatever, stocks went up again, so who cares? But for most people, we're still in the crisis moment. And so I think that that is my takeaway personally from the fact this is happening at all, is that just so you know, guys, it's been 10 years, and to you that might seem like a long time, but to a lot of people, it actually hasn't ended. It's not like that came and went. And so, you know, I'm sure there'll be more opportunities for her to ask questions of folks like that. But I thought, you know, I don't know if I had expectations for that, but you know, getting Jamie Dimon to say too many people are in jail, I suppose, is a headline there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's sort of in toto when we look at the end of the day that, you know, you'll take away various sound bites in the bigger narrative. But, you know, like I said, it's sort of speaking truth to power in a way that I think is very positive, because I don't think these people are held accountable publicly enough.
Right.
And so they're squirming, they're uncomfortable. A lot of people, maybe who are politically conservative or who work on Wall Street, think this is unnecessary, a witch hunt, ridiculous, kabuki theater. I see all that. Having said that, I actually see something positive here and something that's necessary even.
I think they should go every year.
Yeah, I like it.
Maybe like old Humphrey Hawkins. You think you're
Like
going
Jay
to go
Powell? Yeah,
every
but
6
these
months?
guys.
I think,
Right.
yeah, I think there's a lot can be earned from that transparency going forward, because to Miles' point, there's a lot of people that are still left behind and still feel that the banks are part of who needs to be blamed, and to get, you know, some of the opaqueness away could maybe go to their benefit.
And they are a really entitled group of people who are sequestered and don't have their feet put to the fire. So you can't, and they're a very singular industry too. It's not like you have to do this with the food industry necessarily, right?
No.